This morning at Star Wars Celebration, we got the Ahsoka panel, while yesterday we got the full trailer. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni talked about Ahsoka's origins, then Rosario Dawson walked onto the stage with Chopper from Star Wars Rebels, and she basically said the Ahsoka show is not to show her as a Jedi or a former Jedi, but as a good person. Now the biggest reveal is Lars Mikkelsen is Thrawn. We saw the back of his head in the trailer yesterday, but he came on stage. Those in attendance were shown an exclusive trailer, a second one. Also noteworthy is that Kevin kinda scored Season 1, which has 8 episodes. Directors are Dave Filoni, Peter Ramsey, Geeta Patel, Rick Famuyiwa, and Jennifer Getzinger. Another huge reveal is that Timothy Zahn was consulted on Thrawn's character. Dave Filoni says he wanted to get him right, so Zahn, the author of the Thrawn trilogy from the expanded universe and the canon books that followed, has been consulted. And in the exclusive footage shown to the room, we see more of Lothal, Sabine using Ezra's lightsaber, and the Purgle from Star Wars Rebels and the Mandalorian Chapter 17. We were also told about the importance of Morgan Elsbeth, who is a Thrawn loyalist, and in Chapter 13 of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, that fight took 17 hours to film, and George Lucas was on set. And today, my dear friends, we're gonna focus on some of the Ahsoka trailer from yesterday. Enjoy. So on the first day of Star Wars Celebration, on the Friday, we spoke about the upcoming Star Wars movies, Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte, and all Season 2, The Mandalorian, but let's be honest, the biggest highlight for so many fans was the Ahsoka trailer. In it, we saw Hera Syndulla for the first time in live action, Chopper, Baylan, Shin, Ezra Bridger, the back of Thrawn's head, Mon Mothma, and a whole host of other characters too in live action, including the father of Kaz from Star Wars Resistance. But Sabine Wren's appearance raised a few eyebrows. For one thing, she's grown her hair out, and in the trailer she doesn't wear her armor or helmet. In one scene on Lothal, she's looking at a helmet as Baylan's voiceover talks about change, and I think that's deliberate. Just like the titular character Ahsoka's changed, so too has Sabine Wren, in a pretty massive way that I think is going to overlap with the other Mando-Verse shows, and even Dave Filoni's confirmed Mandalorian era movie, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Now on the subject of Sabine Wren's hair, I love the creative decision to have her grow it out. Now that's not going to be for the whole show though, because in one picture from the showcase, we see Sabine with her iconic short hair, but she's undergoing a pretty radical change. Now one worry about the Ahsoka show that's now been set aside, especially with it being the spiritual successor to Rebels, is that it would not do anything different, that it would try to replicate it in live action without organic changes and adjustments. But the great thing in my opinion is that there seems to be an appreciation for the time that's passed. Small details like this really make the characters in the show feel like they've undergone a major evolution, which Sabine has, and part of this can be explained by her decision to dress as a rebel and not a Mandalorian. Sabine Wren's dissociation from and disillusionment with her Mando origins were apparent all the way back in Star Wars Rebels. She was never like her family, the other members of Clan Wren. She very much went her own way and self-defined what a Mandalorian was to her, without the constraints of tradition for the most part. She's a character I would describe with a good moral compass, who wants to do the right thing and help others, even if that means going against the ways of Mandalore, at least what it meant to her clan. We've seen her clash many times with the ideals of other Mandos, and I think the biggest act of giving up part of her heritage was handing the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, who she felt was a much better ruler. Sabine acknowledged that she couldn't be the leader Mandalore needed, despite her incredible skills with the weapon that she learnt from Kanan Jarrus. Now it should be said, while we have yet to learn what Sabine's been up to in the time since the Rebels finale, I would not be surprised to learn she is struggling with her Mandalorian identity and might decide to give it up altogether. The way she looked at the helmet and the voiceover from Baylan makes me think she wants to move on, already has. That's what the hair growth also symbolizes, but somehow I think this is just temporary. She's gonna come back to it, and do you know who the catalyst for that's gonna be? Bo-Katan. Bo is being set up in The Mandalorian Season 3 as the next ruler of Mandalore, and just as Sabine Wren once gave her confidence, so might Bo to Sabine in a future season of either show. The merging of the Mando-Verse is becoming more apparent, making Star Wars leaks state that the first 4 episodes of Ahsoka Season 1 focus on Sabine's journey after the Battle of Endor. This to me signals a personal development that could really go in either direction, but I think she's giving up on her Mandalorian ways. Now, if you think back to the last celebration before this one, Celebration 2022 in Anaheim, Natasha Liu Bordizzo and Rosario Dawson came up onto the stage, and the best thing Natasha said is that Sabine is a character that means so much to so many people, and that statement could not be more true. In recent years, while Star Wars Rebels has gained a lot more popularity, it was once seen by a lot of fans as an obscure Dave Filoni cartoon, but to those of us who love the show and who it means everything to, it had some of the best written and emotionally impactful Star Wars stories. I mean, sure, the first 2 seasons can be a bit hard to get through, but the journey you're taken on along the way, with Sabine but all of the characters generally, is beautiful. I've spoken about this once or twice, but Rebels was a show I watched during a really tough time in my life, and it was a constant that gave me comfort, but more than anything, it gave me hope, and that's what Star Wars means to me and so many others. So when yesterday the Ahsoka trailer dropped and we saw Sabine, I got a sense that Filoni and other creatives on the show really understands what this character means to so many of us. She deserves to undergo a very meaningful transformation, and it's good to see the creatives understand what this 4-season story meant and how that's going to continue in Ahsoka. As I say, we had some really big Star Wars announcements, and one of them concerned the 3 upcoming Star Wars movies. There's going to be Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's film that's going to include Rey, and the new Jedi Order 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. Then we have James Mangold's film, but the third movie is Dave Filoni's Mandalorian era movie. And at Star Wars Celebration, both he and Kathleen Kennedy were asked about it. Is this going to be the Mandalorian finale? In his own words, Dave Filoni states, "I don't know if I'd call it a finale. I think of the time period now as the New Republic time period, and it's something that's existed long before we were ever making The Mandalorian. The idea that after Return of the Jedi there was a New Republic, and that the heroes still had to defend their republic from the Remnant Empire, is a very old idea that we brought into the first season of The Mandalorian, because it's what was always there." He went on to explain he has a very large whiteboard timeline, and that connects everything, finishing in the rise of Skywalker, quote, "like a crime scene, and so many important characters are going to be involved." I think the story just escalated to the point where Jon Favreau and I were talking about it, and we've had a plan for a while. The story also, I think, is, like I said, grown to a point that we want to expand a bit and do a little bit more of a bigger thing than what we've been doing with the shows. But he doesn't want to say what the story is going to be about, but it's going to connect Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, and the Book of Boba Fett. All of those factors are going to interweave. And Jon Favreau seems to suggest this too. He says, quote, "We knew the story would culminate. You have these little culminations that come in each season. You have characters and things that thread in and out. Those characters and these storylines start to demand that you're dealing with larger forces and bigger trends within that time period. So at a certain point, that rubber is going to hit the road in so many ways. And the fact that now audiences will accept a permeability between media, which I think has been, as you see in the Star Wars films and with the Marvel films, audiences are very sophisticated now, and if they're invested in the characters and the stories, you can tell types of stories in one medium that you can't with the other, so the movie's going to be very, very different. But what seems to be the argument from the creatives is this is the next logical step, and I'm so excited for how all these shows are going to come together, and of course Thrawn is a big factor in all of them. And I should say, guys, there was an exclusive screening of Chapter 23 of The Mandalorian at Celebration, and what's to come is insane. The next episode might just be one of the best of the entire show so far. There are plot threads to do with Gideon, and massive connections to earlier parts of this season, ones you might have assumed were throwaway but they're not. So really exciting stuff, guys. Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And just before I go, here is some footage I took yesterday in front of the live-action Star Wars Rebels mural that's going to feature into Ahsoka. If you want my full footage, go and check out my Patreon page. The link is down there in the description. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always.